Hi everyone. I was tagged by John over at Must Read Books for the high school required reading tag, which is a series of questions about the high school experience with reading books. And I thought I'd just say at the top, like, I was not the greatest student in high school. I went to grew up in a small town, went to a rural school, small town school, and the school didn't have a lot of resources, and it was a very old building, very old school, so it was not the most inspiring place. My English teachers were some were okay, some I didn't really get along with, but that's par for the course. But anyway, let's just get to the questions and see what I have to say. So, let's see. Question number 1, high school crush. Name a book you were assigned in high school and loved at the time. Have you reread it, and did it hold up? I don't know if there was a book that I loved when I was in high school. I do have strong memories of being assigned the Great Gatsby and F. Scott Fitzgerald, a very common book assigned in high schools. I think that was maybe freshman year. I might have been assigned that book, and I liked it enough at the time. It is a book that a few years ago I went back and read, and I enjoyed The Great Gatsby. I know some people really love the book. I know some consider it the greatest novel of American literature. I had a friend I know who would read the book The Great Gatsby every year. So it is a book over 100 years old now that still has a lot of power to it. So I'm trying to think what I liked about it. I guess I just liked the historical aspect of it and the 1920s and its commentary on wealth and things like that. So yeah, The Great Gatsby, I guess I do have strong memories of reading that in school. And on my reread, I did enjoy it quite a bit, I should say, when I did go back to it. Question 2, gym class. Name a book you were assigned Name a book that you were assigned that you hated. Have or would you give it a second chance? I'm trying to think if there was I don't know if there was a book like I just really hated when I was in high school. I do remember reading The Scarlet Letter, another very common book to be assigned in high school, and I remember I found it boring. I remember the teacher really hit the symbolism, really emphasized the symbolism in the book, and I was kind of like, yeah, I get it, I get the symbols and things like that. So, I mean, the story was okay. I think I got it, but it would be curious to go back and reread The Scarlet Letter maybe at some point. I would give it a second chance. Hawthorne, I've read some of his short stories. I love his short story, Young Goodman Brown. I really like that story, but I've never really done a big deep dive into the works of Nathaniel Hawthorne. But yeah, question 3, locker combo. Is there a book you remember having to read but can't actually remember? That's an odd question. So that would mean like a book. I remember being assigned the book, but I don't remember anything about it, I guess would be the way to interpret that question. And I don't know. I just don't know on that one. So I guess I'll just move on. Question 4, CliffNotes. Was there a book you were supposed to read but didn't? So a book that I just sort of skipped out on. I mean, I don't know if I ever just shucked a book aside and said I'm not reading it. I know then and now when I get bored with a book, I tend to start skimming, okay? It's different if you have to write a report or take a test on the book or something like that. But I don't remember a book that I just tossed aside and said, no, I'm not going to read it. Question 5, electives. Did you read just for fun? What books were you reading outside of your assignments? Yeah, I did do a lot of outside reading when I was in junior high and high school. I liked to read history books a lot. I was really into the Civil War in high school. This was around the time like the Ken Burns the documentary was out, and so there was a lot of discourse on the Civil War in the 1990s when I was going to school. So I remember reading like books like Bruce Catton and biographies of Abraham Lincoln and things like that. So I was in the Civil War. I like to read some science fiction, like a lot of classic science fiction I would read, like Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, people like that I would read. Sometimes I would just like to read on random subjects, whether they were science books or I remember reading travel books. I remember reading the travel book Blue Highways. I remember really enjoying that book by, I think, William Least Moon wrote Blue Highways. Techno thrillers I liked, Michael Crichton and Tom Clancy. I was really into those types of books at the time as well. Clive Cussler, another name that I remember, but not books I necessarily go back to anymore. But yeah, a lot of nonfiction, a lot of science fiction, and things like that. I'm trying to think of like some classic books or classic authors I liked. I remember reading the Jungle by Upton Sinclair. I remember enjoying that book. I remember like Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five. I remember clear memories of reading that, and trying to think of some more books I read around that time that left a big impression on me. Another history book was Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Was a book that really left a big impression on me. I think, was another one. So I kind of would like to read different things. Let's see. Question 6. What book would you replace from the typical assigned reading list? Well, I'm not sure what the typical assigned reading list is. I guess a book that would be outdated these days or no longer relevant to today's young people. I don't know. I mentioned the Scarlet Letter. That might be one to think about maybe putting on the shelf. What would be one to consider in that way? Yeah. Let's see. Question 7, Teacher's Pet. What book got you exciting about reading for class? Like I said, I don't know in high school if there was a book that really got me excited about reading for class. I know in college I took some classes that some of the readings were really interesting, and it was a different vibe in college, and you would look forward to the discussions and things like that. But I don't remember in high school like being super excited about certain books. Well, maybe with the exception of Shakespeare. I do remember reading Hamlet, and I believe this was like senior year of high school, reading Hamlet, and I think we actually read the book or the play aloud in class. It was actually read the entire play aloud in class, but I did, and Macbeth, I think that year, reading as well, and Julius Caesar a few years before. I liked those plays, and it was kind of fun to read those and try to decipher the language a little bit, but also they were great stories with Hamlet and things like that. And I remember the teacher would show movies as well, I did like that. So like, I remember we watched Hamlet. I think we watched the Mel Gibson version of Hamlet that was from the 90s. And then I remember watching a movie called Renaissance Man, I believe, with Danny DeVito. And this was a comedy. Danny DeVito played a teacher who had to teach a class for military, for people trying to get into the military or something, and they were kind of a bunch of misfits, and they read Hamlet in that movie. Kind of a forgotten movie from the 90s, but I do remember liking assigning movies to go along with the Shakespeare, especially Hamlet. And I remember having to memorize, that was cool too, having to memorize some soliloquies from Shakespeare. I still remember some of those to this day. So yeah, those were some. I don't know if I was like super excited about Shakespeare, but I respected it, and then I've gone back to those plays after high school, and I definitely, always from time to time like to go back and read Shakespeare, maybe some plays I haven't read, or reread Hamlet. I like to reread Hamlet. That's one I like to go back to a lot. Let's see. Question 8. Study hall. What was the most difficult book you read in high school? I don't remember reading a book that was super difficult in high school. I know Moby Dick. I remember we had to read chapter. We didn't read the whole book, but I do remember reading chapters from the novel, and I think it was more the action-based chapters. I remember reading. I never found the Shakespeare super difficult. I found it interesting and I found it challenging, but not. I just never came across a book that was just, oh no, I can't understand this. So that never really happened. Question 9. Nails on a chalkboard. What was the book that made you groan when you found out you'd have to read it again? I don't know if I'd have a book that I really just did not like at all. I don't recall having that experience. Yes. Question 10. Extra credit. What book do you think should be added on every high school reading list? That's a good question. It's a tough one because I think anytime you make a book required reading, it immediately can take the power away from the book, because I think people, especially young people, like to discover books on their own, and having to be told or forced to read a book can make the experience, it's just a different experience, and something like that. But if I had to choose one, I know John said that the Carl Sagan book, The Demon Haunted or Demon Haunted World, that would be a great choice, the Carl Sagan book. I guess I would go with the graphic novel Mouse by Art Spiegelman, which is, I know a book that's been banned lately. It's often on books that are banned, but I find Mouse to be such a powerful work, and really an essential work that is always relevant, especially now. So Mouse by Art Spiegelman would be the book that I think should be required reading. Tag some people you'd like to hear answers from. Hey, if you watch the video, consider yourself tagged, and I'd be curious to hear what others have to say. I'll have to watch some more from videos from this tag. So thank you for watching. Thanks to John for tagging me, and I will talk to you later.